There is one thing that will kill you 10, 20, or 30 years earlier. It will destroy your relationship or marriage, and even if you build wealth or become successful, you'll hate your life and you won't enjoy the journey. This one thing is called stress, and so many successful men, husbands, fathers struggle with this stress principle. So in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down what stress actually is, the 5 different types of stress, and how you can destroy it for good in your life. So if you want to have better relationships, you want to be happier and healthier, and you want to dominate, win, and succeed as a modern day man, then this podcast episode is for you. If you get value from this podcast, please give it 5 stars or thumbs up on YouTube so we can help more men. I'm about to break down what stress actually is, how it impacts your body, the 5 different types of stress, and how you can destroy it for good. But before I do, you might be wondering why the fuck you should listen to me. Last year, our companies and businesses did almost $5 million in revenue. And for almost that entire year, I was depressed, anxious, and stressed. My relationship was falling apart. I didn't have any time. I was constantly busy, and my health went down the shitter. This is the story for so many successful men. And that's exactly why first you must understand what stress actually is, besides a word that most of us say. So, stress in the body is realistically a fight or flight response. What happens when your body gets stressed from work or from a relationship issue, an argument, is your body thinks that there's danger around. So back in the day, when there was danger, a lion or dinosaur would be coming to kill us or attack us. Our body would go into a fight, flight, or freeze response. Sometimes you can call it fight, flight, freeze, or fuck off. So those 4 things broken down are fight, you fight the dinosaur or the tiger that's trying to kill you. Flight, you run away from the fucking dinosaur or tiger that's trying to kill you. Freeze, you panic and freeze and go, it's a dinosaur. You don't do anything, the dinosaur eats you. Or fuck off, you go, fuck this, it's too hard, which is sort of like freeze. Now, this is very much related to what we do in real life right now. I'll get into that in a second. So what the body does in that instant, it sees the danger, it sees the dinosaur, which is our body's response to keep us alive. It will then do one of those options. What happens in one of those options is the body takes all the blood away from your vital organs, from your gut, from your penis, from your and your heart from your brain, and your heart starts pumping blood to put it in the muscles. Because if you're going to run away or fight, you need blood in the muscles, and it goes into this heightened state. Your amygdala, a part of your brain, starts firing, danger, danger, danger. Adrenaline goes up, cortisol goes up, which is a stress hormone or chemical in the body. And when cortisol goes up, that's a good thing because we want elevated cortisol in certain scenarios. But those certain scenarios are getting chased by a dinosaur or working out at the gym. Now, elevated cortisol causes all sorts of problems in your life. Maybe you've experienced some of these problems. Being grumpy and irritable, putting on weight around your gut, it's a belly fat hormone. Feeling like you can't sleep, you can't switch off, feeling tension or tightness in your body, and disease. All of these things are caused by consistent, persistent, elevated cortisol. Now, let's tie this all together. We don't have dinosaurs and fucking tigers chasing us anymore. You gotta realize this as a man. We live in 2024, 2025, whatever year you're listening to this. Our brain doesn't know the difference between stress from a dinosaur or tiger trying to fucking eat us and an argument with our wife, or stress about money or work. Yet we're more stressed than ever. There are more coaches, mentors, podcasts than ever, but as men, maybe you're not one of them. I know I am. Hundreds of our empowered man clients are very successful men. As we increase our success and our wealth, as we try to balance our relationships and our children and our wife and our business and our career and our wealth, it becomes very stressful. And our body is constantly stuck in this state of flight, fight, freeze, or fuck off, which means elevated cortisol, which means disease, irritability, and a fucking shitty quality of life. That's why it's so important to shift stress, because it elevates your cortisol and puts you in that state of fight or flight. Now, you don't need me to tell you that stress is a fucking pain in the ass. It sucks. It's a horrible place to be, especially when you're successful and making money, but stressed out all the time. So the next phase for us to destroy stress is understanding the 5 different types of stress. And they are psychological, emotional, digestive, sleep, and physical stress. I'm about to break down exactly what these are, and I highly recommend you take notes and think, where am I experiencing these things in my life? The first type of stress is psychological stress. The easiest way to break this one down is negative thoughts and overthinking. It's an overactive mind. I remember in my business, I would wake up thinking about work. I would wake up in the middle of the night thinking about work. Every morning, I'd wake up thinking about things, and then throughout the day, I'd have negative thoughts. Fuck, another day that I've got to do this. Oh my God, I've got to fix this problem. Go into work and the business is falling apart. Fuck, I've got to put out this fire. And I'd struggle to switch off at the end of the day. So I'd come home after a long day, and because I couldn't switch off my overactive mind, I wasn't really present with my family. I was more snappy and irritable. When my wife would ask me a question, I'd either grunt and say, I'm fine, instead of communicating with her. So psychological stress is the stress that goes on in your mind. It's the negative thoughts, it's the overthinking, it's the struggling to switch off. Take a note if you experience that type of stress. The second type of stress is emotional stress. Now, as men, we aren't taught how to handle our emotions. The 5 most common negative emotional stresses that men experience are fear, anger, sadness, hurt, and guilt. Fear, anger, sadness, hurt, and guilt. Now, you might be listening going, I don't experience any of those things. Let me explain each of them in turn. There were many times in my business where I was afraid I was going to fail. I was afraid of making the wrong decision. When my partner left me 7 years ago and said, I don't love you anymore, I was afraid I'd never find love again. I was afraid I'd have a broken family with my current wife, Rosie. Most of us as men are afraid of something. We're afraid of failure. We're afraid of success. We're afraid of being judged. But we don't know that that's happening because we're not in tune with our emotions. Anger, massive one. When someone fucks something up at work, when you and your wife get into an argument, when your kids are acting up, there's anger within us as men. This is one of the most common emotions. As a child, I remember my father as an angry man. He would raise his voice, he would yell. He even hit my brother once, and I remember that from 4 years old. I remember that instant. There was anger there, anger towards life, anger towards ourselves. Sadness. I remember a state of depression I was in. I was successful, had the wife, had the daughter, depressed, just feeling sad every single day, and I didn't know why. Why am I sad? Why am I stressed? A lot of men feel this sadness, this deep pain inside of them. Hurt. Hurt is when you feel hurt by someone. I had a team member leave our business recently, and it really hurt me that I'd invested so much time and money into him. And while he was on leave, annual leave, he messaged me on the last day of leave saying, I found another role. That was very hurtful for me. I felt hurt when my partner left me. I felt hurt when my daughter didn't want to spend time with me. I felt hurt by my wife for calling me out in public for things I have done wrong or things she didn't like. And a big one for so many successful men is guilt. I know I felt so much guilt in my life for not spending enough time with my daughter. When I snap at my wife or we get into an argument and I've said something hurtful, I feel this guilt within me. Now, I guarantee you've felt these emotions, and there are other emotions as well, anxiety, pressure. All of these things are feelings. You can't think feelings. You can think and then feel something. You can think, my wife doesn't love me and feel hurt. You can think, I'm going to fail in business and feel afraid, but you can't think feelings, and emotions are simply energy in motion. So a big part of stress is for men, that energy is stuck within the body and you feel tight, you feel tensed. This is going to tie back into the 5th type of stress, physical stress, in a minute. But just recapping this so you understand it, there's psychological stress, negative thoughts, struggling to switch off, overthinking. And that often causes emotional stress, fear, anger, sadness, hurt, and guilt, which most of us as men don't know how to process. We don't know how to take that energy and move it around or get it out of our body so it stays stuck. And that's when so many of us explode or react because it builds up like a fucking volcano. The 3rd type of stress, which no one talks about, is digestive stress. Now, I'm going to get into a second how all of these things are linked together. It's fucking important for your wealth, health, and relationships. But digestive stress is the stress that goes on inside of your gut. Now, there's a huge revolution going on in the world right now for gut health. It's something we teach in our Empowered Man program, and I'm about to teach you throughout this video and podcast how you can fix and improve all of these stresses to improve the rest of your life. But gut health or digestive stress is when you have bloating, you have gas, you fart a lot, you're constipated, or you have diarrhea, you have low energy and brain fog. If you're experiencing any of those things, you struggle to think properly, you feel cloudy, you've got brain fog, you wake up with low energy, then I guarantee there's some form of gut stress going on for you and digestive stress going on for you. And this is a very, very big problem for so many men. The fourth type of stress is sleep stress. And this is why I started the video with, there is one thing that can kill you 10, 20, or 30 years faster. There is an amazing coach out there or scientist, I believe, called Matthew Walker. And he did a podcast with Joe Rogan, it would have been 5 or 6 years ago. And on that podcast, he discussed that on average, they've done a study worldwide. On average, people who sleep less than 7 hours a night, not including the quality of sleep, just the quantity of sleep, die on average 10 years earlier than people who sleep 7+ hours a night. That is insane. That is time with your grandchildren. That is time to enjoy the wealth or success you're building. 10 years of your life gone simply by sleeping less than 7 hours a night. So if you sleep 6, 5, or 4, they'll completely fuck you up. How do you know if you have sleep stress? Very simple. You struggle to get to sleep. You struggle to go to bed. See how this is linked to psychological stress? You can't stop thinking. You struggle to stay asleep. You wake up throughout the night, either to think about things or you just can't stay asleep. You struggle to get out of bed. You wake up in the morning, no matter how much you've slept, and you wake up tired and groggy, even if you slept 10, 12 hours, that's when you know you have sleep stress. And the fifth type of stress is physical or physiological stress. And this is where the body goes into inflammation. You have aches and pains, a sore back, sore whatever. But more importantly, when you have too much physical stress, it causes disease in the body, autoimmune issues, cancer, and heart attack. One of the leading causes of all these problems is inflammation. And one of the leading causes of inflammation is digestive stress and not sleeping enough and emotional and psychological stress inside your body, which causes your body to be physically full of cortisol, in fight or flight, and ultimately kills you earlier. And you can see how these 5 stresses come together. If you're thinking too much, you can't control your emotions, then you eat shitty food or you drink alcohol to numb the pain, then you struggle to sleep because you're drinking or ate way too much shitty food, and then you wake up feeling tired and groggy, and physically you're unwell. All of these stresses are connected. But the first step to changing them and destroying the hold stress has on your life is being aware of what these 5 stresses actually are. Now, this is where it gets interesting because there's 2 things you need to know about stress. The first one is that all of these stresses are completely within your control. It's possible to have clear thoughts, not have negative thoughts, switch off your brain throughout the day. It's possible to have positive emotions 98% of the time, to feel happy, elated, joyful, grateful, instead of being fearful, angry, frustrated. It's possible to have positive emotions most of the time. It's possible to have a healthy gut so that you're able to think clearly, you're able to get through the day, you look and feel great, you lose weight faster. It's possible to sleep well every single night, and it's possible to look and feel great, be physically strong, have nice muscles, have a flat stomach, and physically live a long, healthy life where you're full of energy. However, you've got to work on all of these 5 stresses at the same time. And you might be thinking, well, that's a lot of work. Well, it is. But what's the alternative? The alternative is shitty relationships, divorce, not making as much money as you want, and ultimately dying earlier. Now, both those things are painful. It's painful to work through these stresses, and it's also fucking painful to die early and lose your loved ones. So you got to pick which pain you want. It's not easy to overcome these things. However, it is insanely simple. The second thing you need to know is that when you work on one of these stresses, it's gonna lower all of the different types of stresses. We actually have an assessment in our Empowered Man program. What I'll do is I'll drop a link down below for you where you can complete that assessment. It's called the Empowered Man Stress Assessment. And in that assessment, you can give yourself a score in each of these areas of stress. And for example, if you start sleeping better, it's actually gonna give you more energy and lower your physical stress. If you start switching off negative thoughts and changing the stories in your head and the overthinking, it's gonna lower emotional stress. You're gonna have less fear, less guilt, less sadness, less frustration. They all impact one another. Meaning, if you increase one stress, the other 4 increase, and when you decrease one of these stresses, the other 4 decrease. Now, why is it important to lower the stresses in your life? Because each of these stresses have a direct impact and direct correlation on 3 key areas in your life. These 3 key areas are your health, your wealth, and your relationships. And this is exactly what we teach our Empowered Man clients. Whether they run a $200 million a year business or whether they're an employee making $100,000 a year, they're all trying their best to get through life and have balance in their health, wealth, and relationships. As a man, it's our job to provide for our family. Now, that is stressful, and often we will sacrifice for the sake of wealth. We'll work long hours, we'll stop working out, we'll stop eating well, and we'll be constantly thinking and emotionally stressed out in the pursuit of wealth. Now, what that does is it destroys your health, physically and mentally, struggling to switch off, negative emotions, not eating well, not exercising, getting fat, drinking too much, sedating. That's the health piece. And then it fucks up our relationships. We've all had that instance where we snap at our partner or our kids because we've had a long, stressful day. We don't communicate effectively. We have less intimacy and sex. Stress even affects your penis because it doesn't stay hard because all the cortisol is rushing through your body and the blood flow isn't where it needs to be. So, on the flip side, if you can lower these stresses, you're gonna be healthier. You're gonna have more energy. You're gonna feel mentally unfuckwithable, resilient to all the problems that will come up in your life, especially if you're a successful guy. When you lower your stresses, these 5 areas, physically you live longer, you sleep better, your digestion is better, you're healthier, you have more energy, everything improves. When you lower these stresses, your relationships are better. You communicate better with your partner, you have more sex, you're able to understand each other, you're more patient, you're a better role model and leader for your wife, for your children, and for your team. And ultimately, when you're healthier and have better relationships, you actually make more money. You're more productive at work. You're able to get through problems faster without being stressed all the time. So these 5 stresses affect these 3 areas, health, wealth, and relationships, and we've got to work on all these things in tandem. Now you might be thinking, fuck, that sounds like a lot of work. It's really not. So in the next phase of this podcast, I'm gonna break down how you can deal with each type of stress using just some simple tools that you can implement today. Tool number 1, before we break down each type of stress and what you can do for each one, is to simply ask yourself, how is stress impacting my life in a negative way? How is psychological stress impacting my life in a negative way? Struggling to switch off, overthinking, negative thoughts. How is that impacting my health, my wealth, and my relationships? For my health, how is it affecting me? I struggle to switch off. I think I need to keep working so I don't exercise. How is overthinking and struggling to switch off affecting my relationships? I'm less present with my family. I'm more snappy. I don't actually give them the time they deserve. And how is overthinking and psychological stress affecting your wealth, career, or business? Get to the truth, bring awareness to the pain the stress causes. Often as men, we don't change until the pain gets too much. We have a heart attack, we stop smoking. We get way too fat, we can't see our dick anymore, we start going on a diet. Our partner says, I don't love you anymore, which happens to so many of the men we work with. Oh fuck, I should fix my relationship. Bring the pain forward. What is the pain psychological stress is causing? Emotional stress. What are the negative emotions you have in your body? Just write a list of them. Is it fear? Are you afraid? Are you angry? Are you triggered? Are you frustrated? Are you anxious? There was a period about 4 or 5 years ago where I was so anxious because of the stress in my life that I thought I was gonna die. I couldn't leave my house. I had to take medication and therapy, and none of that shit helped. But I was so anxious, and that feeling was affecting my health. It was affecting my relationships. It was affecting my wealth because I wasn't performing. So how is emotional stress affecting your health, wealth, and relationship? Next one, digestive stress. How are you feeling in terms of energy? How are you feeling in terms of mental clarity? How's your gut health? Do you have a flat stomach, or do you have a bulge? Do you struggle to go through weeks or days without bloating or gas? Are you farting too much? Are you gassy? Are you bloated? Are you constipated? How is that affecting you? Well, it's affecting you mentally and stopping you from performing in your health, wealth, and relationships. How is your sleep impacting your moods? When you have a shitty sleep, how do you react with your loved ones? Are you less short with them? Are you more reactive with them? As a leader in your team, do you get triggered and grumpy and angry at people when you sleep worse? How's it affecting your energy and your health? How's it affecting your mental real estate? How's it affecting your business when you don't sleep well? And then finally, physical health. How's it affecting you physically, which all these things are connected when you're not operating at your peak? Just write a list of all the ways that stress is affecting you psychologically, emotionally, digestive, sleep, and physically in health, wealth, and relationships. Now, once you've created that list, we want to break down 1 to 2 simple steps you can take today to lower these 5 different types of stresses, which ultimately means you're going to have better health, wealth, and relationships. The first type of stress we want to lower is psychological stress. Now, again, if we break this down, psychological stress is simply the thoughts in your head. Now, the thoughts in your head are always framed in language. You never walk around going, ooh, ooh, ah, ah, ah. You aren't a fucking caveman. Wherever you live, whether you're watching this in Chinese, Mandarin, English, or Indian, it doesn't matter. You're watching this video, and while you watch it, you're hearing my words. Now, all of the thoughts in your head are simply language, and they are stories. Let me explain what I mean. Psychological stress has nothing to do with the negative or challenging things in your life. Actually, I take that back. It has a lot to do with it, but it isn't the reason you get stressed. The thing that happens in your life that causes you to think too much, have negative thoughts, is triggered by a circumstance. For example, you're talking to your partner and she says something you don't like. The trigger is she says something. The subconscious reaction, meaning it happens without thinking, in your head is she doesn't care. She's a bitch. She doesn't appreciate me. Something happens in your business, a tax bill comes up or an employee quits. The story in your head is this is unfair. It's so hard to find good staff. There's always bills coming up. Your brain has 80,000 fucking thoughts a day. A lot of these thoughts happen without thinking. And what we don't do is catch those thoughts before they can fester and build. If you've got cancer in your pinky and you don't cut it out, it starts to travel through your body. You got to cut the negative thoughts out. And the way you do that is by bringing awareness to them and choosing a different story. Let me give you an example of how I've done this recently in our business. We recently had a team member leave. I mentioned that earlier. Now, initially, I was triggered emotionally. I was angry and frustrated. I was thinking about it for about an hour. It affected my sleep the next day. However, the story that I brought awareness to was, I can't find good staff. I've invested so much money into this guy. He's such an asshole, blah, 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 blah. So what I did was, and this is the tool you're going to use, is I just wrote down, what am I thinking about? Now I do this every morning when I wake up. What am I thinking about today? And I do it every evening. I brain dump my thoughts. When you take your thoughts, your words, your language, and you put them outside of yourself on a journal, a Notion document, a Google document, those thoughts now come outside of you and you can see them like they're in a mirror. When you look in a mirror, you can see yourself. You might have a massive pimple on your face when you wake up. You don't know it's there until you look in the mirror. Now, once you're aware of it, you can either pop the pimple or decide to just let it be. Well, it's the exact same with psychological stress. What am I thinking about? Once you have the thoughts on paper, you want to do something called a reframe. A reframe is taking those negative thoughts, taking that overthinking, taking that thing that exists within your mind and changing the language, therefore changing the story. Let me explain what I mean. I write down the negative thoughts. I've put so much time and money into this guy. He doesn't care about our business. I don't think it was very professional what he did. Now I acknowledge the negative thoughts. I don't ignore them. And then I decide to write a different story. I'm really grateful for the lessons here. What can I learn from this experience? What could I have done differently? How can I make sure this doesn't happen again? So I take the negative aspect of the circumstance, the thing that's happened. I learn from it. I grow from it. I detach the emotion from it, which we're going to get into in a second, and then I'm grateful for it. Let me give you another example. My wife and I used to argue a lot. We don't argue anymore. Why? Because every time we've had an argument, I write down my thoughts. What am I thinking? My wife doesn't appreciate me. She's always nagging me. Blah, blah, blah. She doesn't help her. Whatever the story is, and I rewrite the story. My wife is doing her best. I get to communicate better. I get to understand her better. It sounds so fucking simple, but if you take every negative psychological stress in your life, the thoughts about work, the thoughts about your children, the thoughts about money, the thoughts about business, all the negative things that you think about, you write them down, bring awareness to them as they come up in the morning, in the evening, and then change the story or change the perspective, then you change your life. And if you do this enough times, it becomes instant. A negative thought comes up, you destroy it. Another good example of this is if you imagine negative thoughts, overthinking, psychological stress as a friend that comes to your door. Most people have had this, but I don't know if you have someone in your life who's just constantly negative. Every time you're around them, you just feel like you're drained. So imagine that person comes and knocks on your door. You open the door into your house and you feed them tea and biscuits. You're now entertaining that person, that negative person. They're just talking in your ear, negative, 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 negative. That's what we do psychologically. Instead, what you do is that person knocks on your door. You acknowledge that they're there and you say, I'm not home. You're like, there's someone at my door. You acknowledge the thought exists, the person exists. You don't let them in, you don't entertain them. You're allowed to have negative thoughts. You're allowed to overthink. You're allowed to struggle to switch off. But bring awareness. Oh, I'm doing that thing again. I'm having negative thoughts, negative stories. I'm going to acknowledge they're there. I'm going to choose to let a different thought in. Negative thought. This is too hard. I can't do this. Acknowledge it. Oh, fuck. I'm having that thought again. I can do this. It's supposed to be hard. That's what makes me stronger. Fuck, I can't find good staff. People keep quitting. Well, people keep quitting because I'm not hiring good people. How can I hire good people? Where can I find them? You take your focus from negative to positive, you change the thoughts that go on in your head. So repeating how to lower psychological stress, it's such a simple step. Acknowledge the negative thoughts, write the things down that you're thinking about that are stressing you out. Get them out of your head, put them somewhere, and then rewrite them to a positive frame. It's very easy to focus on negatives. The way you focus on positives is what's the opposite of the negative. So fucking powerful. This is going to lower your psychological stress. If you're listening to this or watching this, it means that there is a second part to this episode. So it's either already uploaded or it's coming out next week. If I've just launched this episode, it's coming out next week. So subscribe to the channel or to the podcast so you can see it. It gets way better and way deeper. Otherwise, it might already be out. So if you're on this page, just go to the next episode if it's out, and you'll be able to find the fucking juicy material on how to destroy stress for good and dominate in health, wealth, and relationships.